Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Virtualizing Workplaces, How to Deploy VDI and DaaS in 2020. I am Joel Anderson, the VP of Marketing here at Tier4 Advisors. Pleased to present today's panel along with our today's moderator, Eric McVey, who is our CIO here at Tier4 Advisors. Today's webinar will be recorded and made available after the session, along with the contact information of all of our expert panel as well. We would love to hear from you during today's webinar, so if you have any questions for our panel, feel free to use the Q&A feature that is down at the bottom of your screen. You can ask a question away to our panel there. So without further ado, Eric, I will turn the time over to you and the rest of our panel.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, especially thanking our partners for joining and being part of the panel. I'll let you give a brief introduction and in no certain order, just the way your pictures are on my screen. And no, I'm not Jake. He's a whole lot younger and better looking than I am. So bear with this rookie moderator today. So Andrew, we'll start with you. Andrew.laughter is a director in the East from RapidScale.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. Obviously, thanks everybody for joining. So $Laughter, I run sales in the eastern part of the country for RapidScale. High level RapidScale is a global managed cloud computing company. So we focus a lot on the hosting and delivering of production workloads. We look at obviously desktops as a service is one of our core services that we do, infrastructure as a service, DRaaS, Office 365. We do some SD-WAN as well. So, really focus around, looking at customers from moving them from on-prem to the cloud or cloud to cloud, and then layering in those over-the-top managed services to those workloads to help, augment, any type of work they're doing today, fill any gaps, and of course, enable these companies to bring in and leverage technology that they're not capable of doing today, or really, level expertise around that.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Toby Coleridge, CPO for HiveIO.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so glad to see everybody on the call and people who joined. So I'm Toby Coleridge. I run product for HiveIO. Fairly strong background in virtualization, I guess. I was actually at Citrix for 10 years and helped them build Zen Desktop. And now with Hive, we build Hive Fabric. So it's a software solution for virtualizing virtual desktops, and can be delivered in a number of different ways that we're going to talk about sort of all of the background to a lot of what we do today during the conversation. So it should be an interesting 45 minutes or so.
Awesome, Toby. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, the CTO of Lume Technologies. You've seen him before. We all know him and remember him, Mr. Brooks, the one and only Snow.
That's quite an intro. I got to live up to that one, Eric. Good. I'm Brooks Snow. I'm the CTO. Over here at Lume, I focus on our go-to-market solutions and strategy. Work closely with our CMO on what those offerings are and the CIO. Lume is a cloud service provider. We offer 5 kind of major offerings or services, and that's a private cloud or hybrid public-private cloud. We call that Cloud Anywhere. We offer co-location services in select markets where we have these cloud pods. We offer a DaaS VDI solution, which we call Workspace Anywhere, which we're going to focus on today. And then we offer disaster recovery as a service, which we coined Recover Anywhere. And then we have a handful of cloud enablement services, which are kind of our professional cloud assessment compliance as a service. So we're glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you, panel. I'll tell you just a little bit about Tier4. Tier4 was founded by Jake Sherrill back in 2013 with the pretense that the IT procurement process was kind of broken, and having lived that world for 30 plus years, we dreaded RFPs worse than anything. We've evolved over the last 7.5 years or so into 5 major areas: cloud, colo, connectivity, telephony, managed services, security and compliance, and then what we like to call emerging technologies that everybody's trying to wrap their arm around: artificial intelligence, IoT, etc. So we're glad that everyone has joined today. We're going to jump right in on the questions. And as I'm the old guy in the room, when you talk about the virtualization space itself, virtualization is now considered a standard, but back in the day, it's not. It's been around forever. You know, back from even the mainframe days. I can remember, you know, working on virtualized systems off of mainframe back in the day, and it has slowly evolved into the x86 space, compute storage, and now desktops, which is why we're here today. And Andrew, I'll kick it off with you. You know, what have you seen as virtualization has evolved? How businesses are, you know, utilizing it, and maybe just give a definition of what virtualization really is.
Yeah, so obviously it has evolved. I mean, at its core, right, it's the ability to run multiple workloads on a single server, you know, so that's obviously optimizing space, shrinking the footprint of the hardware. And then, you know, obviously going into the virtual desktops, which essentially is a, you know, kind of a component of that is, essentially it's giving you the ability to interact with your, you know, core line of business applications, datas, operating systems from any device, anytime, anywhere. We've seen obviously a huge increase in demand for this. You know, certainly we've been doing at RapidScale, we've been doing desktops as a service for quite a while. But you can imagine that, you know, 10 years ago, you know, there's a lot of conversations around why people should still be, you know, moving to a hosted exchange, right? At this point now, a lot of it's around desktops. You know, given the current state that we're in, there's a lot of limitations that have been exposed around the ability to securely access core line of business applications, as well as the, you know, the data that you have, right, and then the integrity of the data. So we're certainly seeing this as a secure manner to do that. I mean, you know, at its core, it's a, you know, a virtual desktop farm, right? Citrix or VMware it's a culmination of servers creating what's called a base image or a golden image that's deployed out to those end users. That's basically packaging up those applications that they need to access, or that you want them to access from an IT leader for that specific employee. And being able to push that out there without having limitations of, you know, the four walls or the local area network that a business is typically using. You know, with the evolution of the internet, the availability of the internet, the costs continue to go down on it, and the quality of the internet going up. That's certainly been a big enabler for companies to be able to leverage more desktops as service or more virtual desktops that they're looking at. So we certainly see that to continue on, but, you know, it's obviously internet's one of the biggest limiting factors, not the size of the pipe, but the quality of the internet. So as that's gotten better and cheaper, it's certainly made a lot more sense for companies to move to this type of technology to be able to essentially, you know, enable their employees to be in a full production type of mode, you know, any place, any time, anywhere, and really from, you know, just about any device.
Yeah. And I as I was thinking through this webinar specific, I was thinking I've seen the day where the question was, you know, my workload won't work in a virtual environment. Now the questions have evolved into, why won't my workload work in a virtualized environment? And the same can be said for desktop. Toby, Brooks, anything to add there?
I think the other thing is, you know, if you look at what's happened specifically, I suppose, with virtual desktops, right, is they've evolved from, you know, terminal services having a shared desktop to being able to deliver a Windows 10 full desktop to a user. And now it's less about, is VDI right for me, but how does VDI fit into an overall IT strategy, right? And what percentage of an organization can leverage VDI to ultimately deliver the business needs, right? And how does VDI help the business? And so it become much more about a solution and a, you know, enabling technology rather than just a technology looking for a solution, which is what it was 5 to 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's to kind of parlay off that a little bit from what Andrew and Toby said, is that we're talking about a remote worker strategy. You guys, we've talked about that in the past with another webinar with TierForce, but that's really what we're talking about now, is that this mass influx of remote workers based on this, you know, this COVID-19 situation, and that's changed the way businesses look and behave and act. And so this, when you say remote worker strategy, to what you guys are hitting on, it's how do they connect, what policies they have in place, and we're going to get into that, right? We're going to get into security and why that becomes important. And really, what Toby, myself, and Andrew are going to talk about is not just plopping down a public desktop, right? We're talking about that strategy of how to control that environment and manage and help an organization do what they need to do while we, pull the levers on the back in an efficient way, right? That's what we're talking about.
Awesome. So let's take a look at, you mentioned something about remote workers and for people that are not familiar with VDI or desktop as a service, VDI via virtual desktop infrastructure. Let's do a little deeper on that and talk about how each is built and why not it advantageous for companies to consider it. Talk about maybe persistent and non-persistent desktops and the differences in there, and what are some of those advantages, and what are similarities there. Brooks, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think VDI. So we differentiate a little bit. Maybe others don't, but VDI to us is a virtual desktop infrastructure. It's what we hit on. It's virtualizing that desktop environment, right? And now today we're talking about a central data center, secure location, right? And it's really infrastructure. When you're looking at Workspace Anywhere or Azure Workspaces, that's the infrastructure for the desktop, and it's the do-it-yourself solution, right? So there's a good play for that for organizations that have their own team and their staff, and they want to do that, and they're looking for something. Now, desktop as a service, we define, I think Toby and Andrew agree with that, it's all that other stuff that makes the user experience pleasant, right? Or allows the end users to be successful in accomplishing their task, and ultimately let the executive just not have to worry about hearing complaints and not worrying about security. So, Andrew will hit on it, and Toby will hit on about what the advantage is, why and when you sell it, and what it is and what it is not. Yeah, to me, those are the differences. And then I don't know if you want me to keep going on persistence or non-persistence, or kick that over to Toby or Andrew, but I'll let you decide.
Toby, Andrew, y'all want to expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So and let kind of Toby kind of finish it up. So I mean, when it comes to how you're orchestrating and building out a virtual desktop infrastructure or desktop as a service, it comes down to users and applications. Persistent versus non-persistent. In its purest form, think of your laptop, right? Your laptop is a persistent image. You log off, you log back in, the same thing's going to be there, right? There's some advantages to it. There's also some disadvantages. So non-persistent is basically you're getting a clean image each time you log in. So if there's a pool of, call it 100 employees, and there's 100 VMs there that are their desktops, if they log in, the first one to log in, they might be on VM 1. If they log off, they're going to log back in, right? Maybe after lunch, and they might be on VM 63. But it's a non-persistent, meaning it's not the same virtual machine, but it's going to be the same experience because you've got profiles that follow with them. So that's kind of essentially the thing. I'd say probably the biggest advantage of non-persistent is, as you get it to a clean image each time, some of the trash you pick up from websites or potential viruses or things of that nature can be blown away. So it's clean. But, a lot of that stuff comes down to, the solution as a technology as a whole within the virtual desktops, but you're looking at individual users, power users versus knowledge-based users, application workloads, utilizations, all those things kind of go into play around building an optimized environment and optimized solution for that company. And it's not a cookie cutter type method, right? Same thing with session host versus dedicated. You can kind of go on and on, but it really doesn't matter, right? What it's called and how it's done in the back end is more for the companies that are delivering it, right? The as a service model, right? The companies like we have here, we kind of figure out the back end stuff. Really, all you guys, really care about is what can they see, what do they need to be seeing, and what is that end user experience like for them. Same thing if you talk about GPUs and you start getting into like some of those high graphic type stuffs with like NVIDIA graphic cards. All those things kind of go into play. It's just about what they need and ensuring that they've got the appropriate resources on the back end, the horsepower, to provide them a good experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the difference is sort of VDI is the technology, right? And DaaS is a way of implementing that, right? So, and again, it comes back to how does the business want to consume it, right? Do they want to manage and deliver that in their on-prem location, or do they want to have a partner come in and deliver the desktop for them and then what level of management do they want on top of that, right? And you get all ranges of that, and there's some conversations later around the differences between that and what the impact of that is in terms of cost, etc.
Got it. So how does VDI actually work? I mean, for somebody that's not ever set it up, how does it actually work? In other words, you buy a bunch of servers and load some software and divvy it up. I mean, how do you actually get it all set up and working?
So I suppose core technology is you take a server of some description, right? And so depending on how we're delivering the desktop, that could be in your data center, in a managed service data center, in a cloud, right? The concept behind how you stand this up is the same. So you take a server, you install some software that's going to virtualize that server. So that's going to take the CPU and the memory and the storage and effectively carve that up into little chunks for your Windows 10 image to then consume, right? So we take that hypervisor, we then put a number of servers together to give us a pool of resources, right? And that's a key component of that is how do we manage the resource? On top of that, you then place, or you create a pool of desktops for your end users. And so you have, say, a template, and the template will give you that golden image. So that'll be your applications, that'll be the settings you want inside the operating system. It'll be its domain membership, for example. You'll have maybe a profile or every vendor has different terminology for all of these different components, but effectively, from a logical point of view, the same. So we end up with a pool of desktops that are running, say, Windows 10 that we can then assign to a set of users, which is delivered through a broker, right? So we've gone from all of that technology delivering a virtual desktop to the end user experience, which is they just log into a web page, they select their desktop, and then they get a connection to it. And they don't really know where that's being delivered from, right? So from an end user perspective, a good VDI deployment is seamless to them. They just access their desktop and they're using it.
And again, that's from any device, anywhere, anytime, as long as they've got internet connectivity, right?
That's the promise, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the advantages is, I mean, the virtual desktop's not dependent upon the operating system of the machine that you're accessing from. So that's why you can do, iPads and tablets and dumb terminals, thin clients, your home computer, your office computer, a laptop. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of it. And if you ever were to get any type of, kind of total cost of ownership type stuff, I mean, there is obviously some advantage on being able to have a better performance on a less expensive device. But when it really comes down to, I mean, VDI, right, essentially was, people have been doing this, Brooks Taylor, I mean, enterprise companies have been doing this for a very long time, right? There's nothing proprietary that we're doing. There's nothing new or cutting edge that we're doing as a service provider, as a DaaS provider. All we're doing is really we're enabling those companies that do not have that expertise and those resources in-house to deploy this themselves. We'll be able to come in, become an extension of their business from an IT perspective, and bring that expertise and those engineering talents, right, and work to be able to deploy this for their business without having to own, operate, and manage it themselves. We're really at a high level.
Got it. Brooks, talk just a little bit, expand a little bit upon that about bringing those resources in-house when they have other data points or databases in-house, and how that interaction between is improved with a virtual desktop in-house, talking across the same backplane right there with the database next door to it. Talk about some of those advantages that you guys have seen.
Yeah, well, this is why this is why we call it cloud anywhere. That's our whole thing, or workspace anywhere, is because once you move that, I mean, look, Toby and Andrew sound like we're best friends here, but that's because we all agree and we're dealing with the same things. Is what's happening is when you shift that environment, that desktop, right? Forget that it's virtual. What we're talking about is desktop management, remote worker strategy, and helping organizations. And I think Toby and Andrew will both agree that often we're educating some of the top level executives and realigning expectations of what you should and shouldn't do. So just because you got a GPU fast VDI in the cloud over here in this data center, and my user logs in from anywhere and they go here, if you don't have, and your database is back at your headquarters, you're doing this round robin back and forth. You might have to pass that data over. So really, it's about getting that compute, right? Your VDI, your instances, and your data in the same place. And the reason why there's this shift is because data centers are always on, always up, security, compliance, all that stuff, which we're about to get into. But by moving that, having that strategy, like that remote worker strategy, that identifying which application servers go with the application or support that application, that's really how you make it seamless and not have a bad user experience. If you just throw up this is what's happening. This is not to beat up on the big public cloud providers, but I'll take a few punches at them, is they have these seemingly free instances, and they go, here you go, great. And people logged on and they come back to us, and I'm sure, I know Toby, and they know they hear the same thing. Yeah, that was a terrible experience. Yeah, like, what are you trying to do with it? Are you connecting to it, hoping it's gonna solve all your problems and dreams? It's still a desktop. Users are still gonna mess it up. Applications are gonna load and install and step on each other's toes. Like, that stuff doesn't magically go away, right? You have to deal with data complexities and moving data across. So it's key to have a solution. That's where you see, I mean, frankly, that's where our businesses are at. I mean, we're helping solve that problem. It's complex. And
it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. If you go out to say public cloud provider, one of the most expensive workloads to run today is a virtual desktop, right? It's on 24/7.
Oh yeah.
And it's not designed to run like that yet, right? It's designed for on demand. I want this for a short period of time, right? So look at the cost alone of running workload in the cloud is relatively expensive, specifically for VDI.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's shift gears just a little bit about. All right, my desktop is in the cloud. I got my database right next door to it in the cloud. My assumption is I'm coming across some kind of internet connection, be it with hopefully a VPN and what have you. What protects my data other than being in the data center? What are some of the protocols? What are some of the methodologies that are in use today that protect?
Eric, that's easy. The internet service providers do that for us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. See, this is where we make our money. And I'll just say that this is where people are really leaning on organizations like ours, is that it's no longer a matter of having it up 24/7. Great, awesome. You can do that in the public cloud. It's now, is it compliant? Is someone checking this out? Is someone looking at this? Like someone who's got experience, not just Lisa in HR, like someone who is picking on your wife. Her name's Caroline. but someone with the knowledge and understanding, and then looking forward ahead with the security requirements of an organization, because here's a big secret, right? Is security postures change all the time in an organization, right? And you have to have good desktop management, good security on top of that, endpoint, all the encryption back and forth between the two, encryption at rest, but really that security piece and that component is critical, which is why just getting an instance isn't enough, right? You have to then start thinking about intrusion detection and prevention. And it really depends on business. Some businesses can take advantage of just a cheap do-it-yourself roll and go, but the organizations that we sell to and that we support are not that. And I'm sure Toby and Andrew would say the same thing, right? Almost.
Yeah, Andrew, talk a little bit about RapidScale's methodology, because I know you guys have got some fairly complex clients.
Yeah, I mean, we do. And I mean, we're obviously, we work, TierForce. So, TierForce brings us, you guys don't focus on a specific vertical, right? There's lots of different verticals. So, with that, we're also, we're pretty agnostic. You obviously want to familiarize yourself with, mainstream core line of business applications, and just bring that level of expertise, right? I mean, there's always a level of comfort that comes in a conversation you're having with, with the prospect or customer, when they mention one of their applications and you have, multiple customers that you're doing that for. But it really comes down to, ask a question about security. As SaaS, 10 years ago, we were doing desktops as a service. It was very heavy client server. applications, right? Meaning that you're taking that software, you're putting it on a virtual machine within the RapidScale cloud. We then have a Citrix, or a VMware Horizon engine that's publishing that application or that desktop. And as things have started going to more of a SaaS model, I think that there's been some confusion around, okay, so now I can access it from through the public web. So what does virtual desktops really do? It's like, well, when you start thinking about it, is it a good thing where they can access it from? So, one very easy security measure that you can put in place is basically you can decline, they have to be basically only access coming from a specific IP, right? i.e. a virtual desktop. So you can basically, where they can still have the ability to access that SaaS application from wherever they are, assuming they have an internet connection, but you can also make sure that data is being accessed from that virtual desktop. Right. And then going kind of further down the stack from that, obviously, data integrity and sensitivity for some of these other companies that deal with, PHI and such in the healthcare space. There's always concern of, all right, well, if they're accessing this on a specific machine maybe it's not a corporate issued device. We don't want any of that data being leaked out, right? Kind of a DLP. So there's the ability to lock down those desktops so they cannot integrate within that actual workstation, thus keeping that data more secure. So, each business and there's, specific requirements from a compliance perspective, or just their general fears, right, about it. There's ways to lock it down to be, very locked down, very tight, where they really can't do much, including, whitelisting, blacklisting websites. And then being able to free them up as they need to as well. So it really just kind of depends on the business, but it does bring a virtual desktop is going to bring a standardized process to the business, the way the employees are working, but also wrap that security aspect around them to where as an IT leader for that business, you can have a sense of, you can be comfortable with what they're doing because that data is not going to be leaked out. And also, always the forever analogy, which we'll never stop using is, John Smith loses his laptop at the airport, right? John's out of work, right? Can't work. Well, not now. You just go pick up a Chromebook or go log into another computer. And now you can access your production workload. So without obviously losing any of that data if you were to lose that laptop.
Got it.
I'd also say that, when you were talking, Andrew, I was thinking, if you really think about all the components that, our organizations are putting on top of these desktops, right? And the central control and peace of mind, or at least the thought of a third party, someone watching the watchtower concept, right?
Yep.
I think about desktop management in the past, just traditional, and, it, pound for pound, penny for penny, man, it's actually an amazing deal, right? When you think about going out as a small IT shop and sourcing out DLP, multi-factor authentication, of course you can do that, but we're entering this era where it's all do-it-yourself, SaaS everything, and we're seeing kind of vendor exhaustion, and they're wanting, and I know tier 4, you guys see this, they want someone to help, one back to pat, as opposed to throat to because I like to be more optimistic about that. But that when you were talking, that's what I was thinking. It's actually, if you look at it in the right mind, and that's why we're constantly kind of realigning expectations. Say, look, you can go buy a desktop or Chromebook for $200, and you can start working today, and your employees can work. Why would you change that? But you're hitting on this topic, like if a laptop's lost, are you collecting credit card data? Have you had a situation where an employee has really left you an alert because they took company information and you had a lawsuit or whatever, right? Those are the clients that we're going after that need our help, Eric. And those who do it yourself, they're not there yet, or they don't need to be, or they're willing to take that risk, right? So I was just thinking about that as Andrew's talking. I also had one more question for Andrew. Andrew, is that a gator behind you?
Yeah.
Am I seeing? Yeah, okay, there you go. All right,
yeah,
thanks.
that's an alligator. That was a good one. He's about 12 and a half.
Sorry, Eric, that wasn't on your list of questions, but I had to know.
Well, I live in Florida. I live in Florida, right? We got a problem, so I'm just trying to help. I'm trying to help the cause.
Toby,
Sorry, Eric, back to you, man.
We talked about desktop as a service and the management component. just because I've virtualized my desktops doesn't mean my patching business is stopped. My backup business is stopped. You know, all the normal sysadmin kind of stuff has to go on. So talk about what you guys do in that desktop as a service, some of the services that are provided, what you keep up with, licensing, etc.
Yeah.
All that still goes on.
So I think, you know, I guess key from our point of view is we're enabling desktop as a service providers to deliver, you know, virtual desktop at a very cost-effective price point. And, you know, as an organization, I think it really comes back to what are you trying to achieve, right? What skill set do you have internally as an organization to manage the desktop? What elements do you know how to manage today and can continue to manage, and how much of that control do you want to give up, right? And that ranges everything from doing everything yourself on-prem to I want a solution provider to give me hardware, and then I'm going to manage, you know, the hypervisor and everything else that we talked about of the stack myself. You know, and then it goes all the way through to actually I want somebody to deliver desktop as a service, right? And I want them to be responsible for everything up to the operating system, the Windows 10 image, and I'm going to manage my apps through to really completely managed outsource, right? Which is, I want you to give me a desktop that includes Microsoft licensing, that includes application licensing, that includes SQL servers, that includes everything, right? And I'm literally paying a per user per month fee for that desktop. And I have to worry about nothing except what I'm paying you for each user or virtual desktop and the SLAs that I put around that, right? I don't care the technologies that you use that to deliver to me, as long as it's resilient, redundant, it has backup, it meets my security needs, you know, that you're patching it, that it's up to date. And so, you know, as desktop as a service means a lot of different things to different people. And I think, you know, one of the things where like tier 4 come in is what's the right thing for the right business at the right time, and how do we, you know, put a solution together with any of us around this table, right, that delivers what the business needs from, you know, what is notionally desktop as a service means a lot of different things.
Got it. Brooks or Andrew, want to chime in there?
Yeah. So, and I mean, so you hit the nail on the head. I mean, we're all in business we're not in business and succeeding because because of our hardware is good, because it's enterprise class hardware, it's good speeds on the storage. And because we have a good relationship with, you know, VMware or Citrix respectively for, you know, to deliver protocols. And we're in business because we've got expertise, subject matter experts. First of all, on the front end to put the right solution together, to understand what you need and put the right solution together. Obviously it is a consumption model, right? So, I mean, it's, you know, it's scalable, you can move up and down. But, you know, the day-to-day sustainability, like I like to say, is the biggest advantage, right? Outside of being able to actually use the technology without going out and hiring the experts. I mean, you got guys now taking care of what you're doing. The patching, the updates are taken care of in the back end. The proactive monitors being done. The antivirus is layered in, doing base image updates. If you need to spin up a new golden image, they're doing it. You know, obviously application testing, right? Test dev, promoting new applications, doing version upgrades of applications and software. So all those things are done. I mentioned earlier, like becoming an extension of the business. I mean, we are, you know, in all means, I mean, we become basically, you know, part of their IT staff, if not their IT staff. You talk about MSPs, right? Managed service providers. I mean, a lot of these companies now in this cloud space are having success, have an MSP look and feel without kind of that last mile truck roll stuff that some people need. But that's really what companies are looking for. Like, wait, you'll do this. And Toby made a really good point too. And this is important, right? It's not all or nothing. If the level of management that you need is going to be strictly dependent upon the level of management that you can do yourself. So, I mean, if you're more comfortable, if you've got DBAs on staff, right? Okay, you guys continue to do your DBA services. We don't need to touch those databases. Same thing with applications, right? If they got some proprietary applications, they want to touch the applications. Like, you guys just want us to just do the Citrix piece or the VMware Horizon piece, and they want to handle the servers and do that, they can do it, right? Bring their own monitoring software. So there's a tailored approach to all these solutions, but first and foremost, we need to understand, you know, what do you have in-house today? What are you comfortable doing, right? What are you good at? Where do you want to go? And then we bring in the right people and the right solution and level of management to make sure that we have that perfect marriage of partnership.
Couldn't find my mute button. I wanted we've got just a few minutes left before Joel comes and gives us the hook, guys. I want to get to the money part of it. Am I just going to blow my budget out by building one of these environments, or is it is the common answer of it depends? And Brooks, we'll start with you or Andrew or Toby. Either one.
No, you're not. And like, just to play off what we've been talking about is like, when you think about what we're talking about is managing desktops in the day, helping organizations, helping the users accomplish their work goals, right? Or their business goals. We're not plopping down an environment saying, here, pay us money. There you go. That if that is what your strategy is, you said, hey, what's the cheapest possible way to do it? And you don't care about all this risk mitigation. Yes, there are cheaper ways to do it. But if you are really looking at all this stuff that Andrew and Toby just laid out, doing yourself, like that cost adds up, and this becomes a very consumable offering that allows so much more, right? To see into what users are doing, what's going on in their environment. I mean, you can get down into, just so much that Toby and Andrew hit on, and so when you look at it as a whole, like, no, it's very cost effective. It's pretty nuts. It's come down significantly, and I don't mean just because the private cloud providers are shoving that down and the hardware and all that. I mean just the solution and the subject matter experts that have packaged this complicated solution. And Andrew hit on this once before. Like, if you're selling that it's cheap, now it's not it. If you're selling central security, central management, all that, like we said, that's where it's at. So when you look at it like that, it's actually, it's a steal, really. I mean, I sound like I'm selling here. Maybe I am, but it's a steal, no less, right?
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add to that, I mean, there's got to be a reason why. If you're implementing a new technology in your business, which is bringing a new level of technology, right? Is it going to be some new costs associated? Yeah, I mean, of course there is, right? Just like anything else in this world, if you buy something, that you don't have, it's something more, it's going to cost more. But, we're always looking for, and Toby mentioned earlier, business, what is the business outcome that you're looking to have? Was there a compelling event? I mean, right now, we've never seen a bigger compelling event right now than obviously with the COVID. Same thing with 365, right? I mean, if you look at, Microsoft sunsetting 2010, that's forcing a lot of people to move to Office 365. So that's something that they're having to do. I mean, when we're looking at desktop as a service, there needs to be a reason for it to happen. Why are we looking at this thing? What does this do to impact your business in a positive manner? And then, I mean, from the dollars and cents perspective, obviously, do what you can to make it work with that. But that's kind of the first and foremost, right? There's a problem, right? We got a problem in the business. Is this the right solution for the business? Does this solve our problem, right? So then, if your business gets better and then it strengthens the financial stance of it and makes you guys improve, you guys go out there and hire talent versus location, maybe not have to have so many people on the back end doing this for you. So there's obviously some bottom line stuff. So that's all things that we look at, but there's got to be a reason why. I mean, if it's just like, if I read an article and I thought it'd be a good idea, you're probably not going to like what the numbers are. But if you all of a sudden, if you had to turn on a work from home situation, everybody having to go over a VPN tunnel, you got, single points of failure there. We're having trouble doing production. Now we're like, all right, we got a problem. We don't need this anymore, right? So how do we fix it? Now it's, that increase in cost, potential increase in cost, doesn't seem to be as much of a problem.
And just to Toby, I'm sure you want to get on this, but I was going to say that this is a truth that's been around forever. Is IT organizations and individuals are overworked. Wow, something's ringing over. Overworked, underpaid, and just not appreciated, right? And I apologize. And because of that, right, those problems never go away. So when we interface and deal with existing IT shops or organizations, once you get past the fear of you're going to take my job, it really is a liberating thing, because you free them up to do the projects and help manage the business while we kind of say masters of the mundane and do all those little things that you have to do. So I guess just a little tangent, but that working with these organizations, we're not necessarily replacing individuals, right? We're
Never.
augmenting and enabling. We're giving them the freedom to go do the stuff that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, the desktop should not take the percentage of time that it takes from an IT team today to manage, right? It's kind of ridiculous, right? And
well said.
There's the other thing that we're seeing right now is people being forced to review what they're doing because we're now in a situation where people are in the wrong place, right? So it's not technology, it's not the building, it's not a standard DR event, right? That all works fine, we just can't get at it, right? And how do we solve that problem? And I think whilst a lot of people have reacted, with a very short-term tactical solution to get people working, there's going to be a lot of churn in this space over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months with, okay, now I've got out of this and I've spent a lot of money to keep my workforce working, the people who are actually still working. How do I solve this strategically? So if this ever does happen again, I don't have to, turn around my entire workforce and enable them to work from home by some hooky method. I've got a strategy in my IT organization that works irrespective of whether it's, I suppose a normal DR event versus a pandemic, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a better way to do it?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Toby, I want to ask you one more question. You touched on it just a little bit. I see Joel's on. We're about to get the hook. so if I'm attending the webinar and my boss has instructed me to enable a remote workforce, and I'm considering VDI or desktop as a service, or sometimes both in that sense. What are some of the first things I should really be taking note of? Inventory, is it simple as that? What applications I'm running, what inventory I'm running? How do they get started?
Yeah, I think the easy thing is, go and talk to the people who are actually using IT, right? Understand what the end user actually needs to do their day-to-day work, and then work from there, right? So everything else you talked about is, what do I need to consider when delivering my desktop? But fundamentally, you've got to understand what the end user needs to be able to do their job first. And when you look at successful VDI deployments, irrespective of the model, if you have a happy end user, you probably have a happy business, right? And if you have a happy business, then you've done your job, because the budget and everything else, you'll have naturally gone through that process as you go along. But some of the most successful projects that I've kind of seen is where you could be rolling out to an organization that's 100,000 users, and you have to go and educate every single business unit about why they need VDI, right? And it takes forever and it's time consuming and you're trying to force it down their throat. Where you have users who want to get on VDI because it's faster than their environment state or easier to access, they'll start shouting at all their other users, right? And telling everybody else. And then you get this massive influx of, I want VDI, right? And that tells you got it right, because people want to use that platform that you're putting in place. You're not having to force it down their throats. So, we often lose sight of the end user, and I'm very passionate about making sure you're meeting their requirements, right? And the rest of it is just about how you deliver on those requirements.
Yeah, good news travels fast, right? So Joel, I see we're right up against the clock. Any chat questions, QA questions come in from any of the participants?
Yep, majority of those were answered during the discussion. So this is fantastic. Thank you to our panel for joining us.
Kick it back to you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, Eric. For those that have additional questions for our panel, their contact information will be sent out after this, along with the replay. Make sure to join us for next week's conversation as we dive into third-party maintenance versus OEM maintenance, which is right for your business. So that'll be, again, next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. So if any of you have any additional questions, though, for our panel or for Tier 4 advisors, please reach out to a Tier 4 Advisors team member or visit tier4advisors.com. We'd love to be able to facilitate the conversation around VDI, DaaS, and being able to introduce you to some of our strategic partners. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you.
Thanks again to our panelists.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Y'all be safe. Appreciate the time.
See ya.